at wsu.edu.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, May 9th, 2016 version of the Administrative Committee. On my right here is Dan Carscalin, left John Weber, and Jen Piffner will be filling in for Gary Riedner today. The first thing on our agenda is the approval of minutes from April 25th. Entertain a motion.
I would move their approval.
I can second that.
Mr. Bowen, if we could amend the agenda first, is that correct, Lori? Make the amendment first? Okay.
We can do that. We
Okay.
could.
I thought that's-
we want to amend the agenda to add a report from the Sojourners Alliance. If we could do so on the end of today's agenda, we would do that. All those in favor of
Yeah, I'm
doing
okay
that?
with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. We'll say that motion carried, and then move on to the approval of the minutes. And we have a motion in a second to do so. So
We'll approve those.
well, it's 2 out of 3. We'll approve that. The first kind of action item on the agenda is the Rendezvous in the Park approval of the beer garden in East City Park in July 14, 15, and 16. Dwight's going to give us the details on that.
Okay, well, thank you. And pretty much that's it. Rendezvous in the Park is requesting approval for their annual beer garden for the 2016 Rendezvous in the Park festivities. This year it would be July 14, 15, and 16. And this is a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, which this is a slight departure from the past where we've been going Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. This is Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Everything else is the same. It's from 5 to 10 p.m. And, of course, we have the large fenced-in area for the beer garden. That's the maps in your packet there. Same as it's been before. This was reviewed and supportive by the police chief, James Fry, and that's for providing their own security as they have in the past. And we've not had any incidences regarding the alcohol since this started.
John?
I appreciate them coming and asking, and I wholeheartedly endorse and agree that we ought to do this again.
Yeah, I think we've done it enough times. We could probably go ahead and throw it on the consent agenda.
Yeah, the first one was in 2005, if I recall correctly, so it's been on there quite a while. I'm going to abstain from anything because I'm on the board of that organization, so.
You okay with the consent agenda, John?
Oh, absolutely. You bet. Yeah, they run a nice program.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Dwight. The next item on our agenda is USDA Farmers Market Grant. Alyssa Anderson and Kathleen Burns are going to tell us about that. This seems pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Hi. So this is a program that we had applied for, I think it's been like 5 years ago now, and received an award that was $32,000 or so. And that purchased tables and chairs and lots of advertising materials. We did classes, the hand washing station. So it's a very good program. They had changed it this year, though, and so I'm going to go over a little bit of the new parameters and what our focus is at this time. The maximum grant amount is $500,000, and the minimum is $50,000. Previously, it was just $100,000 and under. I think minimum was $5,000. So, and now they have two separate focus approaches on it: either capacity building or community development and technical assistance. And so, what we're looking at is capacity building, in that we're wanting to try to help the farmers market vendors be able to produce and sell more food or contact more people in order to do that. So the two components that fell within those requirements that we felt we were able to apply for at this time were being able to provide some sort of internet or wireless hotspot downtown for the vendors so they could use a square, so that they could do debit or credit cards or the benefit cards.
So right now, when we do debit or credit, they go to the a different site to do that, or do some vendors do a
Well, the problem.
accept a card?
No, some vendors do accept a card, and some vendors do have the square. What happens is there's not enough accessibility downtown, and so by 9:30, 10 o'clock, nothing's happening.
So what, be it Wi-Fi or
Yeah.
regular cellular signal?
Yeah, because it's not just the vendors taking debit and credit on a square card. It's the public
Using all of it.
using Wi-Fi, and there's not enough available.
Bandwidth.
And- Yeah.
Oh, so are you talking a separate band,
Yes.
I guess, for them?
Yes, and IS is we're still working on this. This has become a lot more complicated than we originally had anticipated. We're still getting quotes, but right now we're looking at it probably being at least about $13,000 a year. But we need to, we don't have power downtown to the light poles, and those types of things aren't wired. So we're anticipating we'll get a bid on that later today or tomorrow. So the original setup cost and 1 year of service would be approximately $20,000. So I'm not sure how far we're going to be able to go with this. We didn't get the quotes in until late Friday afternoon. There might be some other alternatives, but Jesse hasn't been able to get those quotes in yet, so we're still working on that. And it might be that we need to do some more work. The ideal time would be for us to, when we get ready to redo the downtown, expand the fiber system, and that would make it a lot easier. But if we can try to get something worked out for the vendors now, that's one of our goals to do. The other item that we have in here is that we would like to propose to the USDA that we have them pay for the farmer's market salary for 3 years, and that would be at a full-time rate, which would be at $52,000 a year. So, and that's with the benefits and everything. That's a rate that was quoted by finance. For 3 years, that would be $156,000. And what that does for us also, it keeps the farmer's market manager able to work full-time year-round so that he can bring more vendors to the market, and he can work with the vendors and help them do other outreach activities, training, those types of things. So it would be a full-time service and would be one of the best ways that we could expand the market with the different things coming up in the future that we're already working on. So the two requests together equal $220,000. And right now at this time, I don't see us wanting to expand on that number. The grant is due on Thursday. I'm not sure at this point how far we're going to be able to get with the internet, but we'll definitely propose the farmer's market manager salary.
John?
So the farmer's market manager salary, which is far and away the largest chunk here, is somewhat like the grants that we've gotten for the police department over the years. They're good for 2, 3, 4 years, and then at the end of that time, the city either takes over the position or eliminates it.
Yeah, and that, I think we'd go into this, and whoever was hired for that position would need to know up front that, it's a 3-year opportunity, and beyond that, we have no idea what will happen. And that would really have to be made clear.
Okay. Dan?
So it's not like John said, it's sort of like the COPS grant, but not
A
directly
requirement to maintain them.
Yeah, because at the COPS grant, we had to maintain them as an employee. This one, we're proposing what we're going to spend the money for, but we're not tied to. I mean, you could apply for something else as well, but this is what you happen to be applying for. It's not a salary type thing. It's not an application to get a position. That was just the thing we decided we could use.
Correct. And this is the first time that they've allowed market manager salaries to be included in the grant application. And so
Yeah, that's kind of a first, because in the past, the grants have all been about supplies, marketing, promotion, but not salaries. So it's a great opportunity because we're kind of distributing our work in the arts department between a variety of people to get the market up and running. And it's really is, I mean, we're already working on 17 and we're in 16. So it is a year-round job, and it would be great to consolidate that to one person. And just getting the contracts for all the music and the performers, and just doing all the manage my market and the registration and the fee collection and site visits to farms, and there's quite a bit of work in producing the market.
Let's keeping that Farmers Market Commission wrangled, you know. They're pretty ornery, I hear, so.
They are, yeah.
And I do want to note, in my discussions with Gary, you know, it's very clear that this isn't a commitment to maintain that position full-time if we
Right.
were to be awarded. But there are a lot of things that are happening with the market, and it is a very large economic driver for us. So there's potential for other things to come up in the meantime that possibly could assist in funding that long-term. But at this point, if we were awarded, it would be the 3-year period that we would be focused on solely.
In the past, we have a market manager, and a certain portion of this salary we're already
Yes.
doing. I don't know what percentage of it is, maybe half of that?
That's approximately, yeah.
The current
Not
market manager?
quite.
Not quite half.
Not quite half. But still, the difference there would be, if I remember from your report on the farmers market, the total deficit spending that the city's putting in, this would erase that for at least these 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think it's a great thing. As far as the Wi-Fi goes, I have no trouble with my phone using the credit cards just on 3G. So it's possible to do that if it doesn't work out. But certainly, would the Wi-Fi be available to everyone at the market, or just the vendors? Only vendors would get the password to keep the bandwidth use down?
That, you know, as this has developed would be a really good word I was
Yep.
looking for. I've learned a lot. And I've had some really good conversations with Jesse about how much knowledge I did not have on how that works. So,
You understand
At that
everything you didn't know now.
point, right now I would not be able to answer that completely, but the goal is to focus on the market vendors, and I don't know if we would have it password protected. I know that you know, a lot of people are downtown using their phones during the market, and if you can see that there's a connection available, people are going to want to know how to hook to it.
Right.
So I'm not quite sure how we're going to be able to work this out. And honestly, had we been able to not take out 3 weeks of time period to work on our other prior large project, I probably would have been able to get this vetted out sooner, but that took a priority. So we'll get something figured out before it's ready to submit. And I know that it's due before council on Monday. And so what I'm asking for then would be you know, a tentative approval to move this forward on Monday, but if something should come forward on council on Monday that they would not approve it, then I could retract it from the system and ask for it to be removed.
Okay. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a great idea. Go.
I don't see any way that the other council people are going to put an X on it. I mean,
Yeah, I think we're good to go.
We can consent agenda that as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Somebody has an opinion, they can pull it.
That's right. Okay, the next thing, we'll keep Elisa on board here for the TAP grant with the underpass, the bike pedestrian underpass under Highway 8. This is pretty exciting as well. And tell us what you know about that.
Well, I'm actually going to pass this on to Jen. Gary assigned this project to her this time so that I would have backup, which is really exciting. And so I'm really pleased to just be silent here and answer questions and let Jen take over.
Talk about all the things I didn't know. I'm getting a very good lesson in Elisa's world and Bill Belknap, community development, engineering, all that as well. So I've seen these guys in action. It's really neat to work with them on this as well. The project that we're proposing for this grant, it's called TAP, Transportation Alternatives Program, previously known as Community Choices through ITD. It's a federal aid grant that they administer. This is the underpass project at Highway 8 that connects White and Steiner Avenues with the underpass at Highway 8 to connect to Paradise Path and the larger network there. The project started as a student design project, I believe, back in 2011. Terra Graphics then did some concept design work and looked at that through 2014, which was the last I think the council heard about it. The opportunity to apply for the grant came up in the last month or two and is due on June 1st. Preliminary cost estimates are at $425,000, and looking at an average about 7.34% match is what the grant calls out. So we're looking at about a match of $31,000 and change. Construction would happen in 2018. It's a reimbursement process, so that we would be looking in FY18, FY19, depending on how everything fell, for the actual contribution of the match and the spending of the funds to complete the project before reimbursement. That's the background. Again, project's due June 1st. We should hear back, we think, by the end of the year. There's no clear date outlined, but with Elisa's experience, she believes it'll be before February of next year, I think.
One of the things that they're doing this differently this year is they're awarding 3 years' worth of projects under this funding. And what that does is it gets them on the state improvement plan, the STIP, statewide improvement plan, so that people know in advance, how long it's going to take. Yeah. And they have a pretty set dollar amount of what they know will be available. So it's a good time to get our feet in on this one right now. Also just wanted to add that this will connect the pass system from Highway 8 along the side of White Avenue, correct? Yeah. And hook up with it by the fairgrounds. So it will also connect with the Paradise Pass system without having to cross over Highway 8.
When this was, this came to council before the design concept of this, and at that time it seemed like the cost estimate was around $350,000, and so everything's been put in here to bring that up to the 2018 constant dollar amount, I assume.
In working with Kevin Lilly and the couple years that have passed, and then the federal aid stipulations that will come with the project as well, that's why the higher figure, to make sure we're on target with what the project would actually come in at.
Sure we don't come in short when we get there.
That's the plan.
Right now, they have the local Highway Technical Assistance Council managing this project for them. So there's about a 30% oversight fee, inspection fee, when they manage the programs, when the programs are managed through LTAC. And so that was part of the larger increase we see in project costs.
They get 30% of the total value of the project just for overseeing it?
Part of it is the design and bidding. They do a lot of different functions within that. Not each project is specifically the same on how they manage it, but I think Dan's been through several projects with them, and the assistance that they offer is what ITD staff would not be able to do in-house. And so basically it's added onto the project, each individual project costs of awards. So I guess that's the best way to.
Everybody has to get a piece.
LTAC is a government agency, is it not?
They're a.
That's a good question.
They're a quasi-judicial entity.
Quasi-governmental, I think,
Yes.
is what they say.
Yes, and so they're fully funded by government funding, and they're a sub-entity under Idaho Transportation Department.
And yet they operate independent of that, and they're like the Fed. They
No,
can do
no,
they can do what they want.
They have to follow the ITD regulations and implement them, and they have to follow the federal guidelines for construction projects because TAP is federal money, so they still have to follow all those guidelines. And then in addition to what we normally see is they'll usually do the inspections. If they have staff available, they help with the design and getting it approved through the process. A lot of times they'll do the bidding for you. So it does take some responsibility out of our engineering department's hands. And so those fees just kind of all add up.
And well, an IDT would otherwise have to finance that, so it doesn't really. It's just who gets the money. It's not really how much.
Right.
Those costs would be incurred.
It'd be there anyway. It just
Yeah.
happens.
It's just how it's,
Yeah, they're not taking money off the top of the TAP program to
Or
pay
adding
staffing as much. Instead, it's added on to each individual project, and really how that impacts us is that we're paying a little bit more of a match
it
than
seemed
we
like the
would.
original match was like 26,000 on this, and then so it's not very
32.
much, 31 or 32 now. With a 5-year time gap, that seems pretty reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think we should
I
move
recommend
forward with
approval.
this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. And if I could just make one note, Bill Belknap, Kyle Steele, Kevin Lilly, Elisa, everybody's been very wonderful in helping me with this, so I really appreciate them and look forward to finishing up the project with them, so.
I'm looking forward to have back.
Thank you.
Consent or regular agenda?
This, I would say consent.
Consent, yeah.
Okay.
I think that organization has some similarities to the urban renewal agencies. They are operating pretty much by themselves, but under the same set of rules, and they have to be, in this case, the state, whereas the urban renewal agencies go to the cities to start. So.
Same thing. Okay, so that pretty much concludes the original items we had on the agenda, but the Sojourners Alliance report would be the next thing up. And are you in charge of that, Jen?
Well, I've
or-
been checking my email, hoping Steve Bonner from Sojourners Alliance would be able to join us, and I haven't gotten a message yet, so I believe he's up at the county having the same discussion there. The reason this came up at the last minute is over the weekend it came to light that the Sojourners Alliance group had lost a significant portion of funding that helps with their transitional housing program. Some of the issues that have come up is being able to transition the people that are currently in that program to a different program or something to help them move forward. Some of the background that Steve Bonner has shared with us is their current transitional housing grant, which is the funding from HUD that's being discontinued, leaves them as of May 31st without funding to manage that transitional program. As they've worked through this problem, even just over this past weekend, they've got a few new sources to help bridge the gap to kind of meet the immediate needs of having to make these adjustments. Wells Fargo's been able to contribute. They've got a GoFundMe site that's live. There's private donations are coming in. The Idaho Housing Finance Association has several options for transition support. They're doing some donation matching, looking into the opportunity of being able to do that. The potential for moving stipends, rental assistance, those kinds of things for the people currently in the program. As of an email from Steve, it looks like they are able to manage through most of July. July 21st was the date he had. That was earlier today. We haven't heard if any other folks are assisting at this point as well. I think they're working on that pretty feverishly right now. The idea for this afternoon was to talk about how the city could perhaps help in this instance and to open that discussion today so it could move forward to council next week.
Well, I think it's certainly something we should be talking about, and I don't have a problem with putting it on the agenda for a report on council next Monday.
Yeah, I don't know what, you know what, I think you were on at that time, John, when we helped them with a,
Bathroom issue.
yeah, some sort of plumbing issue over there. So it was,
yeah.
it's more of a facilities thing than an operational thing. I don't
I think
know
we
if,
gave them 20,000 at that
yeah.
time.
And I'm not,
It was 15 with 10 in reserve
okay.
contingency. Yeah, and it was the restroom or the shower facilities had
was like-
impacted the structure of the two
Right.
buildings. And we assisted them with that in 2009.
and I wanted to, say that, any help we could give would be great. I don't know that, though, that we want to jump into operations with them, because I don't know that the city wants to end up operating the homeless shelter at this time. But I do think that it is something that we should put forward for discussion. There may be some sort of stopgap that we could help with, some sort of fill-in. We have our legislative fund there that for unprioritized projects, and maybe there's something if they have a project or something that we could maybe do that, and they could move that money over to operations, I would feel more comfortable with that than helping with actual operations of the.
I agree with you, Dan. I think probably the first thing that we need to find out is what is the dollar amount we're looking at.
Yeah.
And then figuring out, once we know that, do we have it? Are we comfortable with allocating it? And then how do we make sure that it is for an action-specific item instead of monthly bills,
Right.
and then, because the chances are real good, this would be a one-time deal.
Yeah, I don't think that we, are able to help extensively like that at this point.
Run the program, we're not.
But it sounds like if he's got something to help him with his operations through July, it's not quite so imminent and urgent. So at least, I'd try and hopefully we could get Steve to come to the meeting on Monday, and that way, kind of give us a little bit more of the background of what's going on, and maybe some of the needs. If there's an actual project-specific need we could fill that would help them move that money into operations, I think that'd be great. That would be more doable on our end, I think.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to go into a open-ended support of the
Right.
day-to-day operations of that in any way in the near future, but we certainly might be able to help short-term till to bridge the gap.
Exactly, yeah.
And if at the end of July, they're able to identify future funding on a more permanent base, great. And if they're not, they will have had June and July to soften the blow on helping to find the residents, find another place.
And it might be if Steve shows up for the next meeting, you might let him know that, we're shut down, but he might be able to come to the next one and share what we've discussed at that, and then, maybe get some more input from those guys too.
What I got from the paper over the weekend was that the federal government was Housing and Urban Development was changing their focus on shelter funding to getting people directly into more permanent housing. So some of the people that are involved in the Sojourners thing right now, there may be funding to get them out of Sojourners and directly into a more permanent apartment or housing situation, and maybe their need would go down. So in that regard, so that's something's yet to be seen, I guess.
You bet.
And another use for Syringa.
There you
go. All right, then. That's the extent of the report we have available to us, so I think we should go ahead and put that as a report on the agenda for Monday's council meeting and see where it goes from there.
See what they actually need.
Works for me.
All right, that's about all we have on the agenda today, so entertain a motion to adjourn at this point.
I'm all sorts of entertaining.
All right.
And I'll second till the cows come
All right.
home.
Consider us adjourned then.